The Electrominer. It's my latest creation in Space Engineers. It's got a lot of ion engines facing downwards because it's an experiment in using electricity to get into space. So it's got two big jets, lots of big ions. It's only got ions for manoeuvring, even in atmosphere. It's got a bubble shield projector, it's got a couple of gatling guns, it's got all the basic mod cons. So here it goes into space. On the left, counting down to 50 kilonewtons, are those two large jet engines. As we approach the 10-kilometer mark, they're plummeting downwards until they hit zero, and I can switch off the jet engines. On the right, that's the readout for the ion engines. You'll notice the amount of kilonewtons is ticking up. I've already had them at maximum for some time, but the thrust is ticking up as I increase altitude. So at this point, the jets are off, it's all ion engines, and I'm getting more and more thrust out of them as I climb, and my speed is at maximum. So maxed out thrust, observing thrust at the moment, 13 minutes is my power supply. So what I can do now is gradually start trimming back the amount of power to those ions until I've only got as much thrust as I actually need. So this ship should be able to carry a bit more weight than I've got. It's a mining ship, so it's going to come back heavy. So there's that. But as far as the ion thrusters are concerned, they're only really getting me to space. Coming back down from space, I just drop. When I get really low, I use my aerodynamic surfaces to get some lift, and I use those two very powerful jets to get some lift. So it's not too much of a worry. These ions are just for doing this job here, getting the weight of this ship into space. So I've trimmed them back down. I was burning through energy, as interesting as it was to see the amount of thrust climb as my altitude climbed. I've dropped them down to 17 kilonewtons, and I'm still accelerating upwards at my maximum speed. And now my gravity's down to about a fifth of normal, so it's just a matter of cruising upwards for another 20 kilometers until we're completely out of the gravity well. And we're near some asteroids to mine. And I've got a new mining drill on the front, a Dummy Industries nano-based mining drill. And this is the test flight for that. So, this particular ship I can add a bit of weight to. It's got all these ion engines, and I can actually armour it up a bit or give it some more cargo. Power it up a bit because the ion power is for lifting off, as I say. This is jumping ahead to the return journey. Behind me, that asteroid that's been tagged there with gold and uranium. I've just been testing out the newfangled drill, and I've established that the drill works nicely. I've got a medium cargo and some other cargo areas full of uranium. I've got 4 stone ejectors on this ship, so at this point all the stone's been ejected, and I'm just cruising back down to the planet. This is the extractor I land on, so that slurps all the uranium ore out, sends it to our refinery. So no big adventures in returning. I've got 2 parachutes in the tail that you can see there. But those 2 big jet engines did all the job, and once I got low enough I was able to fly with the aerodynamic surfaces a bit, but I was just able to pull up to a complete halt using those twin jets. So down at sea level here, these ion engines on the bottom don't do very much. I'm just hovering on those jets, and I've got 2 large ion engines facing forward and back. So they're actually enough for a ship this size at sea level. You can still maneuver. It's a mining ship. You can maneuver as well as a mining ship needs to at sea level. Whereas my strafing engines are both just a single large ion, which means it's a lethargic strafer. So I shall demonstrate by putting it back in the garage. So thrusting upwards is extremely easy because I've got a lot of downward thrusting power. But normally here you'd want to just strafe sideways until you line up with the ramp and down you go. But this ship's strafing engines are very anemic, and its ability to put on the brakes to use the dampeners while strafing is pretty weak too. So what I like to do is just point my nose there and go there. My accelerating and braking engines are just enough for a ship this size. So I'm considering weighing it down with some armour, some more cargo. I could just take some of the ion engines off. It seems to have more than it needs. So I can make it heavier, or I can remove engines. But I'm not going to add strafing engines or accelerating engines in particular. I like the idea of only having downward facing jets and every other engine is an ion engine, because that makes it nice and efficient. Ion engines are what you need in space, and they get you by down here on the planet, providing you've got those jets to hover thrust you. Because if I turn the jets off, these ions, as numerous as they are, won't lift the ship down at sea level. So that's the general gist of the electrominer. It's perfectly good at what it does. It doesn't need any hydrogen refueling. It just needs a bit of a recharge. It's got a small reactor on board that can be loaded up from the cockpit. It's just tucked behind the cockpit. So the amount of time it can spend in space is huge, but it was specifically built to go from planet to space and back again. So yes, the electrominer is a perfectly sound bit of gear and a very good test platform. It gives me those spiffing readouts of how many kilonewtons I'm getting from my jets and how many kilonewtons I'm getting from my ions. I can watch what altitude I'm at as one drops out and the other overtakes. It's very good, and I'm quite happy with this little gizmo in general.